My social justice research project. So the main question being asked is, should medical marijuana be legalized under federal law? First, let's start with an anecdote about Robert Randall. Robert Randall was a founding member of the medical marijuana movement and an advocate for its legality as a legitimate medical treatment. Randall developed glaucoma in his teens, a condition which damages the optic nerve, leading to severe loss of vision. An ophthalmologist told Randall in the early 1970s that he would go blind within a few years. However, Randall never lost his vision. After coincidentally discovering that smoking marijuana helped his eyesight, he began cultivating his own and using it on a daily basis. Then, in 1975, he was arrested when marijuana was discovered on his property and was criminally convicted for cultivating and consuming it. He then underwent a multitude of tests conducted by UCLA, only to prove that no other drug prevented the deterioration of his eyesight like marijuana. Laughable at the time, Randall presented his case that his use of marijuana was a medical necessity, and the federal district court ruled in his favor. The FDA included him in a research plan that provided him with 10 joints a day. He officially became the first person in the United States to legally smoke marijuana medically, and continued to advocate for the legalization of medical marijuana for all in need. An overview of the controversy. What is medical marijuana and why is it controversial? To understand this, we must continue off the story of Robert Randall. 2 years later, the federal government attempted to reverse Randall's privileges, to which he filed a lawsuit and the court ruled in his favor yet again. Following this decision, the FDA created the Compassionate Investigational New Drug Program, through which individuals could petition for legal access to marijuana for medical use. This program was severely inadequate at helping the vast amount of patients that could have benefited from medical marijuana. Many patients would never even consider the idea that an illegal drug might be their best medicine, and those who did and found the IND often could not find doctors willing to take on the program's arduous bureaucratic requirements. In 1992, an increase in AIDS patients seeking pain relief applied to the program, so the George H.W. Bush administration closed the program to new applicants, and pleas to reopen it were ignored by subsequent administrations. Medical marijuana refers to the use of the cannabis plant and its derivatives for medical benefit. Marijuana consists of several hundred chemical components, but the most well-known is tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, which causes marijuana's high. It can also be used to treat nausea and vomiting. Dronabinol and sesamin are two FDA-approved synthetic versions of THC which are prescribed to treat nausea and vomiting for patients undergoing chemotherapy for cancer or to stimulate appetite for patients with AIDS. A side effect of these drugs is euphoria, which means they can make you high. At the federal level, only these two medications are legal. THC or other extracts, whether synthetic or derived from the marijuana plant, are not. The other marijuana compound, which with known medical applications at the present time, is cannabidiol, or CBD. CBD does not produce a high like THC. It has shown to be an effective treatment for severe epilepsy and chronic pain. In addition, marijuana has shown an ability to help alleviate symptoms of other illnesses such as neuropathy and PTSD. The U.S. federal government has had marijuana classified as a Schedule I controlled substance, meaning, by definition, it has no medical value and has high potential for abuse. Also because of this Schedule I controlled substance classification, the federal government has strict limits on studies involving marijuana, making it difficult for scientists to get funding for access to the necessary quantity and quality of cannabis needed for in-depth analysis. While 36 states have legalized medical marijuana on a state government level, the use of marijuana, for any reason, remains illegal under federal law. This is where the main problem arises, because the federal government still has the right to arrest and prosecute a medical marijuana user even if their state allows it. So essentially, the two main factors that cause this controversy are the lack of access to much-needed research and conflicting laws between federal and state governments. My personal stance. It is crucial that medical marijuana is legalized under federal law. And instead of putting effort into criminalizing marijuana, more in-depth research should be revolved around it in order to optimize its safety and effectiveness. Marijuana has been proven to alleviate symptoms from numerous illnesses, such as cancer, AIDS, HIV, glaucoma, PTSD, neuropathy, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, and side effects of chemotherapy, just to name a few. It is extremely effective at treating chronic pain and can be an alternative as a first-line treatment to pain for patients who are unresponsive to other medicines. In one survey, as seen on screen, 87% of patients reported some benefit to a great deal of benefit when treated with medical marijuana for a qualifying condition. This shows that too, multiple illnesses and diseases of patients report at least some benefit and at most great deal of benefit from using marijuana medically. Other than the obvious positive medicinal effects of marijuana, another reason why it should be legalized by the federal government is because it has an overwhelming amount of support from the majority of the nation. As seen on the graph, many Americans oppose the government enforcing federal laws against marijuana, and would support a bill protecting states that have legalized marijuana from federal prosecution. So as you can see here, the purple is the majority, and they would oppose the government enforcing federal laws against marijuana. And the majority here is the yellow, and they would support a bill protecting states that have legalized marijuana from federal prosecution. So, with the majority of the states already having it legalized, and with an obvious support from the American people, it would make sense for the federal government to be democratic and legalize marijuana instead of criminalizing and contradicting the views of the population. So, some rational objections. What are major concerns and perceived downsides? A major concern is that if marijuana is legalized federally, then the nation will experience an increase in crime, and overall public health will be negatively affected. The church teaches that the illegal production and sale of illegal drugs is a direct evil and immorally wrong. Many people who are opposed to marijuana legalization argue that its smoke contains carcinogens and may increase the risk of lung cancer and other respiratory tract cancers among users. In the eyes of opposition, the risk of using marijuana outweighs the potential medicinal effects, and there just isn't enough research to prove it can be a legitimate medical substance. So, my opinions in response to the objections. States that have legalized marijuana maintain high standards and have tight regulations. These same states have either experienced no change or even a decrease in crime rates, traffic fatalities, and opioid use. Catholic teaching has a major focus on lowering crime rates and incarcerations for drug abuse. Under federal law, patients who use marijuana are at a risk for unjust conviction, much like Robert Randall. These users aren't buying and selling in order to get high, which is considered immoral. They are buying and using because marijuana is effective at easing their physical pain. Why should someone be arrested for that? More than 100 million Americans suffer from chronic pain, and to accommodate for this, opioids such as hydrocodone, oxycodone, and morphine are being prescribed at alarming rates. And as a result, opioid overdose deaths have seen a spike in recent years. However, in states with legalized medical marijuana, opioid overdose death rates are 25% lower than states without legalized medical marijuana. If a doctor needs to prescribe a patient in need of medical marijuana, are they evil for selling an illegal drug? And is that patient morally wrong for using that illegal drug to ease their pain? The church teaches that the use of drugs is only moral if it is used strictly therapeutically. But unless the current state of the classification of marijuana is changed at a federal level, this means that doctors and patients that prescribe and use marijuana are morally evil. And I don't believe they should be viewed that way. The stigma of smoking weed mainly comes from the institutionalized classification of marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance under federal law, which states it has no medical value and can become highly addictive. This is untrue, because not only can the medicinal elements of marijuana be prescribed in safer forms, such as edibles and ointments, medical marijuana has proven to be one of the safest therapeutic substances, as no one has ever died from an overdose. It has been proven that smoking marijuana does not lead to lung cancer, or any type of cancer. This is a characteristic that is true for tobacco smoking. However, frequent use of marijuana may lead to minor respiratory problems, all of which can be solved by taking a break from smoking on a regular basis. This is exactly why more research is necessary. With more research, ways of extracting potentially harmful chemicals in marijuana may be possible, and the way it is synthesized can be changed in order to make it most effective while at the same time safe. The idea that there is not enough research to produce concrete evidence for medical marijuana to be implemented nationwide is somewhat ironic, because not only is it true, it is the glaring problem. Patients, doctors, and scientists find themselves in a catch-22 because the federal government denies marijuana is a medicinal drug, but at the same time hinders the very research necessary for it to gain this status. The DEA prohibits private laboratories from producing medical marijuana for research, and block the FDA process that would allow marketing of marijuana as a prescription medicine. Essentially, the limits set by the federal government on marijuana are serving no one, neither the opposition or the advocates, because at the end of the day, research is needed to support both sides. The multitude of state and federal laws regarding the use of medical marijuana are confusing and problematic for those who might legitimately benefit from access to it. If only its Schedule I controlled substance classification was changed to a Schedule II controlled substance classification, then legal, in-depth clinical research could be conducted to refine and articulate its already proven effectiveness. Thoughts about the future. Due to the overwhelming support from the mass majority of the United States, and the call for more research from both advocates and opposition, marijuana will most likely be legalized under federal law, and its classification as a Schedule I controlled substance will be removed. Overall, I believe this will lead to a healthier society, due to the fact that millions of Americans who suffer from chronic pain can get access to medical marijuana more easily without fear of prosecution. In addition, state governments and federal governments could essentially be on the same page, and discrepancy that hinder public understanding and medical advancements would be non-existent. Thanks for watching.